This is an Acme tow dolly. Now I want to share with you some of the things I learned when I was trying to buy this tow dolly. There are so many different options out there, and most people just kind of take it for granted. And I think most people buy the cheapest tow dolly that they can find because they really don't understand what all of the options mean. And sometimes you might find yourself in a situation where your car just won't fit the tow dolly. So we're going to take some time to discuss some of the options and features and what you need to know if you want to drag your car behind a vehicle such as an RV, which is my intentions to do with this little car. Now this is a Chevy Volt. They're kind of difficult to tow behind. You can't really flat tow them. They sit really low to the ground, so you need to find something that has some relatively low clearance. So picking a dolly for it was a little harder than most vehicles. Now, I'm not going to show you how to load your car onto a tow dolly. I think there's plenty of videos out there of people showing you how to do that, and they're very adequate, and you'll learn a lot if you watch some of those. But what I do want to talk about is what options to look for when you're purchasing a tow dolly, what makes them safe, convenient, just the simple things that sometimes can be overlooked. Now, one of the criteria that I wanted something that I could tow a car behind my RV and something relatively portable. There was a couple fold-up options I seen. They look kind of rickety, but this one is actually designed to sit on its end just like this. So you can either sit it in the end of your garage, like maybe against the wall, and pick it up, and it's perfectly okay to sit it like this. It's been engineered and designed to do so. Or maybe you want to lean it up against behind the back of a shed or a garage or something like that. Another thing I don't really care for is dealing with brakes. I always seem to have brake issues with my trailers, and electric brakes work and they're great, but my RV doesn't have a brake controller. I didn't want to have to install another one. This has surge brakes, so there's no electronics required. It uses inertia of the vehicle coming at you to stop the brakes, and also the brakes are disc brakes. Now this dolly needs ramps, and I like the fact that these ramps were self-contained and they stored right on the tongue of the dolly itself. Now, the biggest question you have to ask yourself when you're buying a dolly is, A, do you need a fixed deck or do you need a pivoting deck? Now, some of the decks pivot, and this particular unit is a fixed deck, which I purchased on purpose. And the reason is my Chevy Volt, the steering wheel does not lock. And typically, if your steering wheel doesn't lock, it works really well on a fixed position deck. It doesn't pivot. And if you can lock your steering wheel, a pivoting deck works very well as well. So that is something a lot of people kind of get confused about. We'll go over that again. Basically, if you have a fixed deck, your steering wheel in your car cannot be locked. It has to be loose. And if you have a pivoting deck, the steering wheel in your car needs to be locked. Now, since my steering wheel doesn't lock, this was a perfect option for me. The company also offers this in a galvanized version, which is what I bought because I live in a rust belt area. Things I own seem to rust out. There's a lot of salt on the roads in the wintertime, and I hate battling rust. I have a galvanized boat trailer. It's lasted many years without any rust on it at all. So when I was shopping for the tow dolly, I wanted to make sure it was galvanized. Now, obviously, tow dollies come in all kinds of different designs and heights and things, and I wanted something that was relatively low to the ground, and this one is. My car is a Chevy Volt. It sits really low to the ground. The lower the deck on your dolly, the better for a situation like that. Now, in the state that I'm at, if your tow dolly has working lights, your vehicle does not need those lights, so I wanted lights on my tow dolly. I also wanted higher quality LED lights. Now, normally I'm not a big adjustment guy. I kind of like things that are simple, but when it comes to a tow dolly, you never know what you're going to stick on it. So you really need some versatility in things that adjust. So you can see the ramps can be slid in and out quite a bit. The wheel chocks up here, or the strap holders, can also be slid left and right as well, and that's just going to accommodate pretty much any width of car you can stick on this. And with this being the widest deck I could find, it should accommodate pretty much anything. I believe it's a 5,000 pound capacity, 3,000 pounds across the axle weight limit on this, and it's exceptionally light. You can pretty much handle this without any issues at all. For me to tip it up into the upright position, it just didn't take a lot of effort. Now, this particular dolly did come with a set of wheel straps, the basket straps, pretty classic, and that's something else you're going to look at. They make different designs of these. Some are better than others, some are easier to use than others. Just one more thing you kind of have to research. Now, I found the ones that came with this dolly seem to be pretty adequate. So basically, just kind of a quick rundown. If you're shopping for a dolly, you need to know a few things. A, is your car going to fit it? You need to make sure the width of the dolly can accommodate your car. You need to get in the owner's manual and make sure your car can be put onto a dolly. Not every car can. You need to make sure that there's clearance, that your car doesn't sit so low that it won't accommodate on the dolly. And then you need to make sure the weight is also correct for the dolly and its restraints. After you figure all of that out, you need to make sure that you buy a fixed or non-fixed rotating deck. You need to figure out which one of those you need. That's probably the biggest overlooked option. People don't understand that. Do you need a rotating deck or do you need a fixed deck? Pretty important, something you really need to think about. And then brakes. Do you have the appropriate hookups in your vehicle to use regular electric brakes, or should you use surge brakes, which are these? They don't require any electricity at all. It's just the inertia of the vehicle that turns them on. So these are some of the things you really need to think about before you buy a dolly. What do you really need? There's so many options out there. It was just really hard to weed through them. And I was kind of hoping by telling you why I purchased this particular dolly, it might help you when you're trying to find a dolly, what you might need or might not need. I'm going to put a link down below to the Acme Easy Dolly Company. They actually were awesome. They built this thing and shipped it to me. I had to put together just very few items, and it's an extremely stout, very well built dolly. I see no issues with this. This should last my lifetime, or at least until I'm tired of it. So hopefully when shopping for a tow dolly, you might have learned something from this. That was kind of my original intentions, was to enlighten you with some of the things that I had to learn about when purchasing a dolly. I normally build a lot of things, and I do a lot of do-it-yourself type stuff around the house, so take a look at some of my other videos. At the very least, you might be entertained.